Now welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is going to be a top 10 video, and this is going to be 10 movies that I think you should see. This is going to be 10 films that have maybe flown under your radar, lesser known, sort of genre films such as horror, sci-fi, fantasy. Those type of films that have not been particularly, big or well known, that you may not have known about, and I strongly suggest you go and see them. Now, a couple of things I'll just say about this list in specific. I've tried to keep it relatively recent films. The oldest film on here is 6 years old, so I've not gone sort of too far back, basically, and trying to keep it all kind of fairly recent films. And the other thing I've done is I've kept it to films that I have reviewed on this channel. So, even though I may have some negative points about some of them, I still have enjoyed them, and I still would recommend all 10 of these movies if you're so inclined. You kind of feel like it might be down your alley. So let's get started. I just want to give it a couple of honourable mentions to some movies that didn't make the top 10, but I think maybe still worth checking out. First one is Blood Widow, which is a slasher film. I'm not as hot on slasher films, to be honest with you. They tend to be a horror genre that I enjoy, but I'm never really that excited about. But Blood Widow, I thought was a fun film. Had a creepy antagonist who is a rare female slasher, and she's kind of like this ninja sort of style character, and it was pretty good. I'd like to see more of it. And the second kind of honourable mention is a film called Where, which is probably, you could guess, a werewolf movie. It's a found footage film. I was to and fro between the number 10 film and this about what to put in the list, but this is a decent film. It might be called Were, actually. It's W-E-R. But anyway, go check those two out. But let's get on with our top 10 list. So number 10, this is a movie called Dark Feed. Now this is probably the lowest rating out of all of my top 10. This hasn't got a brilliant rating on things like IMDb, but I think this is a decent horror film. Basically, the movie here is essentially a creepy old sort of hospital. Basically is being used as a film set for they're filming a horror film, and strange things start to happen and supernatural presences make their kind of presence known, and this has got a genuinely creepy feel to it, and it builds up a nice kind of sense of atmosphere, and I enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed things like Grave Encounters, which are kind of another horror film based in a asylum. There's been a few. This one isn't a found footage film, it is a sort of standard film, but it's pretty spooky. I would suggest checking it out, although this one is probably the lowest out of all these films in regards to its kind of rating. The next one I'm talking about is Automata, and this is one I reviewed relatively recently. It's an Antonio Banderas film, and it's a Blade Runner-esque style kind of future where we have sort of robots basically that are sort of pretty much all within our lifestyle. And this basically is a story of Antonio Banderas' character realisation that these robots, there might be something going on with them, they may be kind of evolving. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a smart film, and this film has got its detractors as well, but I think it's a smart, quite action-packed movie with quite a lot going on, and I really enjoyed the aesthetics of it. I thought it was a very good looking film as well. So number 8, this is a film I wager most people haven't seen, and this one's called Boy Wonder. Now, don't let the title put you off. I think that a poor title hasn't helped this movie, but this is it's kind of a superhero film minus the superpower. So it's like an indie version of Kick-Ass, basically, but without the kind of the sort of costumes. I'd probably say a bit more of a realistic version. So it's just about a boy who has kind of a tragic past, basically, and he's trained himself as he grows up to become basically a fighter, and essentially becomes a vigilante. He kind of has a costume to a degree, but there's no sort of superpowers. And like I said, this is definitely an indie film, but it's I don't know. It was such a good film. I thought I really enjoyed it, and then it was such a surprise. Sort of came out of nowhere. This is probably certainly one of the kind of the smallest films. Obviously low budget, but well made, well acted, and had some good action scenes in it. The next one, number 7, is Wormwood. This was a zombie film meets the kind of a kind of Mad Max type sort of situation. So now we've seen obviously Mad Max Fury Road. So this really, if you're a fan of that film, you'll probably get a kick out of this one. Basically, this is about the world that's overrun by zombies, and it's basically up to a group of survivors who you kind of use road combat and kind of dress up in kind of big armour and very much like the kind of the Mad Max series. And it's kind of over the top. It's an Australian movie. It's got a great sense of fun. It's got quite an intriguing kind of like subplot with it as well. It's a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it. And number 6, this is the oldest film on the list. This is a 2009 film, and probably the one that has, I guess, one of the more recognisable Hollywood names in it. This is the movie called Defendor. And this one's got Woody Harrelson in it, and this again is a kind of a superhero style film, but basically he basically is a character called Defendor, who is this mentally challenged guy who's basically kind of obsessed with superheroes and has this kind of a persona and tries to go after sort of criminals and stuff like that. And it's about the people kind of around him, including the kind of the criminal element as well. They try and help him, but he's just like this very sort of positive guy and just basically wants to help people and sort of take down bad guys. You've also got Kat Dennings here as well in this movie. Next one is a film again which hasn't got particularly well rated, but I really enjoyed it, and that was Orc Wars, and this was by Arrowstorm Entertainment. And this is an interesting film because basically it's like, what happens if you were to take the kind of the creatures from Lord of the Rings and spill them out into our world, and there you have Orc Wars. Basically it's about it's kind of this parallel dimension, this fantasy dimension, and all these orcs are spilling out into our world, and it's basically up to a group of characters to kind of defend them. You've also got things like dragons and princesses in here as well. It's a fun film, and it has that kind of aesthetic from Lord of the Rings. It's obviously very influenced by it. It's a fairly simple film, to be fair, but it's fun. I really enjoy it. I think it's one of Arrowstorm's best movies, to be quite honest with you. Number 4 is Savaged. Now this is a movie that is very much you would say a cross between The Crow and I Spit on Your Grave. So this basically is the story of this kind of young woman who is deaf and mute, and basically she's kind of accosted and as she's travelling across America, raped and seemingly murdered, but she's basically arises from the grave as a kind of Undead Avenger basically, and wreaks havoc on these kind of these bad guys as a sort of supernatural being with Native American kind of spirits, energy and things like that. But it's a good movie. It's kind of more of an action film, but with horror elements. But if you don't like kind of like rape films and stuff, there is obviously an element of that with it as well. Next one, number 3, top 3 now. Afflicted is my number 3. This is a fantastic found footage film. This is basically a vampire film, and this is the people who made this film. The 2 directors actually star in this film as well. They're 2 real life best friends, and it's such a good, well made found footage film. We actually do see quite a lot on screen. It's an engaging story with interesting characters, and it's like I said, with these found footage films, a lot of them you don't see too much on screen. This one you do, but so you kind of really buy into the story, and they kind of wear GoPros a lot, so that's the excuse for why you're seeing them. It's very interesting because when this one guy gets his sort of vampire powers, initially you almost think he's going to become a superhero, but obviously he's a vampire. And then number 2, this is the film that inspired me to do this list, and that is Turbo Kid. This is a recently made from 2015 film. Really good. A throwback to the 80s, basically. A kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Max mixed BMX bandits. Really fun film. Fantastic soundtrack. Absolutely enchanting characters. Loads of kind of over-the-top gore. Really, really fun film. I really suggest anyone go and watch this film. And I challenge you not to like it. It's amazing. I love it. So that is Turbo Kid. Great film. Like I said, definitely check it out. It's actually being released on Blu-ray, I think, in the UK in a couple of weeks, so it's not far. And then number 1, this is a film you've probably heard me bang on about a few times before if you've watched this channel. And this is a movie called Borderlands, which is another found footage film. And this is basically a scary movie. This is one of the few films that generally kind of creeps me out because it's such a great atmosphere, and basically follows these this kind of some representatives from the church who are sent to this kind of very remote, out of the way sort of building, like a church, basically, to investigate claims of what they think originally is going to be some kind of divine intervention and kind of acts of God, but there's actually something a lot more sinister going on. Great atmosphere, genuinely unsettling, I would say. Genuinely unsettling and a fantastic, creepy atmosphere. And I love the ending of this. And this film it takes a left turn, and I thought it was brilliant. So that is my top 10 list. So I strongly suggest you go and check out any of those films. Obviously, some may not appeal to all of you, but I suggest checking them out if you are a fan of kind of independent, genre-based movies. Let me know what you thought of any of these films that I've mentioned down below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.